Greetings and welcome to week 6, unit 1 on course outcomes. We understood the structure of course outcome statements in terms of 4 elements, which are action, knowledge, condition, and criteria in the previous unit. Now we will try to see how to write good course outcomes, because the course outcomes are required to, or if they are properly used, it can greatly facilitate in teachers planning their instruction, as well as students planning their own learning. Let us summarize this. What are good course outcomes? Good COs communicate unambiguously to students what they are expected to be able to do at the end of a course. For example, our current practice is to give a list of topics and refer to, let's say, 2 or 3 textbooks. But just merely mentioning the topic doesn't tell you, doesn't tell the student at least, to what extent, to what depth that should he pursue that particular topic. What is it that he needs to learn in that? Does he just merely need to remember the definition of that? Or should he be able to solve some problems related to that? By giving just merely the title of the topic, the student cannot make his own judgment. The only way he can do is, after the teacher taught that particular thing, the amount of detail the teacher presented in the classroom, that will become the guide for him. But instead of waiting for that, you want that to be explained, you want to be presented right in the beginning, rather than wait for a later time. The other way that the student will look at it is, maybe he has to guess by looking at the previous exam papers, what kind of questions, at what level of detail the question paper is designed. Okay, so instead of that, a good CO will unambiguously communicate to the student what exactly he should be doing. Now they can also help the teacher to plan the instruction that facilitates students to attain the stated outcomes and design appropriate formative and summative assessment. Because if you write your CO properly or with sufficient amount of detail, then it will also help the teacher to plan whatever, because a teacher is all the time either designing quizzes or designing assignments or end semester examinations and so on. Question papers have to be generated. So the both formative and summative assessment can also be done much better when you have a good CO written. Then I know to what I can expect. And then the students will also be able to, as I mentioned, they will be able to plan their own learning. Because no one can pay attention to every word of every sentence that is spoken by the teacher in the classroom. Many times our minds wander, and then in the process we lose out what is happening. So you have this reference. Once the COs are in front of you, you know how to plan for your own learning. It is a guide for that. And while good COs can be written in the framework of any taxonomy of learning that you choose, we talked about several taxonomies, though we didn't present all the details. People have used Fink's taxonomy, Solo taxonomy, and so on. Here, in this particular course, we are writing our course outcomes in the framework of revised Bloom-Vincenti taxonomy. there is a small difference. Revised Bloom's taxonomy is one, revised Bloom-Vincenti taxonomy is another one, where you have pure engineering courses, not science mathematics courses, but uh, it can be applied to even engineering science courses if a teacher wishes to, where we can use revised Bloom-Vincenti taxonomy. What is the difference? In revised Bloom's Vincenti taxonomy, we have 8 knowledge categories instead of 4 in the revised Bloom's taxonomy. That's the difference. Now the next question is, how many COs should we have? For a course, how many COs should we write? Too small a number of COs, like you write 2 sentences explaining the aim of the course. While it gives some information, but that is not, it doesn't provide you sufficient detail either to plan instruction or to plan one's own learning. Okay, so it cannot be too small a number, but too many COs can also make the processes related to assessment design, computation of attainment of the COs very messy and demanding. So you don't want to have too many. And anything related to credits is an interesting thing. It is not exact. If you try to make it exact, you get into problems. Okay? So the same thing should kind of continue. If it is a 3 to 4 credit course, 3 or 4 credit course, with or without laboratory if you have, then one can have about 6 course outcomes. Personally, I would put it as 6, maybe I would put it as 7 plus or minus 1. But some people would like to say 6 plus or minus 1 or plus or minus 2 also. But if you have only 4 course outcomes, it's, in my opinion, for a 3 credit course, it is very small in number. But again, there is a personal judgment that you have to use. There is no formula for this. It is a teacher's perception about the details of the course, how many course outcomes you should have. But as I mentioned, not too small a number, not too large a number. And if the number of credits associated with the course is different than 3 or 4, then correspondingly the number should be changed. Occasionally, you have 2 credit courses, sometimes even 1 credit course, and generally you don't have 5 credit course because it's not, it is a demanding and it is harsh on students, because if you have, for some reason you have not been able to perform, your grade point averages will come down. Very rarely people will have 5 credit courses. You have anywhere from 1 credit to 4 credits. That is normal practice. And we have to demonstrate that we are attaining these course outcomes, right? Because you have written course outcomes, they need to be attained. That means the teacher should be able to facilitate students to attain these outcomes, and you should also be able to measure to what extent the students have attained these outcomes. So attainment of course outcomes is measured through summative assessment only, not formative assessment. Formative assessment is mainly for learning. It should be possible to determine the attainment of a CO through the normally followed assessment mechanisms without needing additional instruments. You cannot expect students to write an additional exam or an additional test to truly assess them whether they have attained the attainment, the CO or not. You can't do that. No, the students will not write such exams. So normally followed, whatever you are following, Of course, these things differ from one institute to the other, from one course to the other, depending on the type of institute that you have. We will come to that presently. But whatever normally associated assessment instruments which are used for actually grading the performance of the student, they are only through those we have to compute the attainment of course outcomes. CBO should facilitate in creating multiple summative items of different difficulty levels. You should write the CBO in such a way it should have scope for the teacher to design a large number or variety of questions, you can say. We call them items or test items. Okay, it should have that scope. Otherwise, one course outcome is to be only attained by maximum possible 2 problems that can be asked. Then it becomes predictable. Okay, and also you want at different difficulty levels as well. You want to generate questions with because you want to differentiate among students also sometimes. Then you have questions of at different difficulty levels as well. Okay, then the question comes, units and COs. There has been a long tradition, at least last 30 years or so, people have been describing their syllabus or colleges or universities or describing their syllabi as number of units. Because everyone optimizes their effort involved to achieve a particular goal, right? So what happened is people found that students were ignoring some portions of the syllabus. And yet you can pass. You can get maybe even first class by completely ignoring some portions of the syllabus because you need to put less amount of effort. So to overcome that, people have come up with the idea of unitization. That is, you divide the entire syllabus into some units, anywhere from 4 to 6. You have examples of that. And then you try to say same number of, though you unitize, they don't have to be equal sized units, but many people convert them into, they were counting in terms of number of lectures. Let us say each unit will have 12 lectures, things like that. And then they also said from each unit we will have so many number of questions with so many marks. That is how you can persuade students to pay attention to all parts of the syllabus. But what happened, it also finally ended up with people systematically ignoring some units and yet score marks. It somehow resulted in that. So unitization finally did not serve the purpose, though it still continues. The what do you call tier 2 colleges for whom the university decides the syllabi, then they are still following unitization. But now if you put it, if you consider the unitization along with the CBOs, our personal recommendation is don't take units at all. Units have nothing to do with the course outcomes. So while writing CBOs, you may have your syllabus described as in terms of units. You leave it like that, don't disturb that, but you look at all the topics that you have. Based on that, you try to create your own course outcomes. In that process, what may happen is more than one CBO may be associated with one unit. People were even legislating there should be one course outcome for one unit. That is, it has no basis at all because the CBO depends on the topics that you are dealing with. And one CO may correspond to topics from more than one unit because of their interdependencies. So writing COs, keeping the units in mind is not appropriate. If the course is described as units, leave it as it is. Don't change the topics, but you can write your COs independently. It can be 7, 8 or 5, 6 like that you can have depending on the course. So units need not have to do anything with the number of outcomes. Okay. Now let us come to action verbs. We mentioned you can have multiple action verbs. When we use multiple action verbs, you are working on the same set of knowledge elements that are chosen. If you change the knowledge elements and associate a different action verb with that, you are essentially combining two COs in one. Okay, so first thing is when you are using multiple action verbs, the knowledge elements do not get changed with additional action verbs. Now, the other mechanism is if more than one sub-process of a cognitive process are to be addressed, there are two options. Because as we have seen in the revised Bloom-Vincenti taxonomy, you have 6 cognitive processes and each cognitive process has several sub-processes. Like even take the remember has recall and recognize. Whereas understand has 7 sub-processes. Apply has 2 and analyze has 3. Evaluate has 2 and then create has 3 sub-processes. Now what may happen is use the cognitive process itself if more than 2 or 3 sub-processes are identified. For example, if you say interpret, summarize, explain, if you want your CO to include all the 3, in that case, instead of using each one of them separately, then you can write understand as the action verb. If I say understand, I am employing all the possible sub-processes under that. That's what it means. The other way is use action verbs associated with the concerned sub-process. We'll presently show examples. So both options are possible, but one is more detailed if you are using multiple action verbs. What you call highlighting a subset of the sub-processes. Okay. Then comes the other issue of additional action verbs. When a CO is required to explicitly address a subset of POs or PSOs, the action verbs associated with the activities of the selected PO or PSO should also be included in the CO statement. Because I can write a CO without bothering to say which particular PO out of the 12 that I have, which subset of POs I am addressing. First I write my CO and then look at the statement and then I say implicitly or explicitly I am addressing PO1, PO3, PO5 like that I can make a decision. But that becomes a little subjective. But the other way is I want my CO to address a particular selected subset of POs and PSOs. And then I choose action verbs related to those. Based on the description of that PO, which is given very clearly, I choose a corresponding action verb in this. Which is, in my opinion, second one is a better option. And though it can be quite tough if you want to do it on your own, you can make use of these days. You can you can take the help of some AI tool. We'll come to that. Now, look at this CVOs with multiple action verbs. Model laminar and turbulent flow. Model is a sub-process of understand which comes under the explain category. For the explain sub-process, model is an action verb. Simulate the same thing, same using computational fluid dynamics. Simulate is an apply activity. Okay, you are doing something, and it is an apply activity, and sometimes it could be execute, sometimes it could be implement as well. But I am doing simulation. Using computational fluid dynamics CFD software, open form, I'm being specific, and verify the accuracy of the simulations by comparing the results to analytical solutions, experimental data. Verifying is again an apply activity, just whether it is correct or not. Or if it is subjective, then we shift to, it belongs to now evaluate category, and then identify potential sources of error. That means it belongs to identification of this kind, belongs to analyze cognitive process. So as you can see, one CBO has almost 4 cognitive processes associated, but I am exactly using the corresponding action verbs. So there are 4 action verbs that are included here. Okay, this is one example. Let's say I start with another CBO. Determine flow rates and pressure drops within 10% accuracy in piping and open channel networks as encountered in urban water supply and irrigation systems using continuity equation and Bernoulli's equation. It's a valid CBO written, but you are using only one action verb. But now I want to append to this that I also want to address PO6 and PO7. What is PO6? It belongs to what do you call engineer and society. In what way it has influence on that and so on. Even sustainability will come under this. PO6. PO7 is related to ethics. Are there ethical practices in this area? If you want to address that as well. So now how do I modify the same thing? Broadly it is the same CBO, but now I further modify to make it a little more detailed, where PO6 and PO7 are also addressed. Evaluate the ethical environmental implications of flow rate and pressure drop design in piping and open channel networks used for urban water supply and irrigation systems, and determine flow rates and pressure drops using the continuity and Bernoulli equations with an accuracy of within 10% and demonstrate awareness of societal and environmental considerations in engineering practice. It's a rich CBO. With all this can be included in a course on, let's say, fluid dynamics. Fluid mechanics is considered as a pure engineering science course. It doesn't have to be like that. You are still dealing with the theory. You are not compromising on the theoretical aspects, but you are also practically converting into an engineering course as well. Okay. So as you can see, there are 3 action verbs, each one belonging to, for example, evaluate belongs to evaluate obviously. Determine belongs to apply. Demonstrate is also in a way belongs to apply. Okay. Sometimes you should remember these are not hard demarcations from one cognitive process to the other. So you can be, for example, demonstrate can come under, in say, the way we are doing it can come under understand. It is a little bit of your personal judgment you have to use. This is not hard and fast. Okay. Now, where do the AI tools come? First of all, AI tools can be effectively used to write the good CVOs. There are several open source and commercial AI tools that can assist an instructor in writing good CVOs for a course. Some of them are ChatGPT, Gemini, Cloud, Jasper AI. There are there are something like 40 AI tools today available, but all of them cannot be used for everything. Some of these tools are designed for a specific type of audience or specific usage. However, you can make it work towards you if you have that some open source tool. But if you have, they are not very expensive to use at personal level. One can, it can, because it can save a lot of time for an instructor, you can always pay for use of some tool, for example. I use what is called chatbot, which gives you choice of using the ChatGPT or Gemini, something else. Okay. Now, how do we use AI for writing CVOs? The AI tools can assist in several ways in writing good CVOs. Ask the AI tool to generate several different versions of a course outcome based on a set of keywords. Keywords can be your topics. Okay. This can help you explore different ways to phrase the outcome and identify the more effective option. You can ask AI to generate multiple versions of your same course outcome, and then you choose which you comes closest to your way of your perception of that particular topic. Paste your course outcomes into the AI tool. You write first if you want, and paste it into the AI tool and ask it to assess whether they are clear, concise, and measurable. But when you say clear, concise, measurable, it helps if you can define what you mean by measurability, what you mean by conciseness. Okay. Ask it to suggest specific improvements to make the outcomes more actionable. AI tool is powerful, but it is important to remember that it is not a substitute for human judgment. Always carefully review and edit the suggestions provided by it to ensure that they are accurate, appropriate, and aligned with your course goals. As it exists today, yes, it can greatly help, but you cannot take recourse saying, what can I do? AI tool told me so. No, not yet. At least we have not reached that stage. Provide the AI tools with as much context and specific information as possible to get the best results from it. Because the context will have to be defined. That is where it becomes very effective. The more details you provide, the better it will be able to understand your needs and generate relevant suggestions. For example, we want, let us say, CO2 address PO2. PO2 title is problem analysis. But if the problem analysis, that analyze word is to be strictly understood in the sense of revised Bloom's taxonomy, not in a commonsensical way. And if you do not make it very clear to AI tool, it will interpret it in the commonsensical way and say, I am addressing PO2. Though actually it doesn't. Okay. So the more specific information or the context details you provide, you get a better result in that. And writing good CVOs with the help of an AI tool is an iterative process. Then consider, I have given all the contextual information and whatever it comes, I will accept no. You have to use your judgment and again modify your prompt, the way you ask question to AI tool, and iteratively you can come with best possible. So it's worth spending that kind of time, that iteration, to really come with the appropriate COs. So some do's and don'ts. Do not use words including like, such as, different, various, etc. We have a tendency to write. You should pay attention to various issues related to this. The word various may be clear to the faculty member. What are all the various things that the faculty member considers important? But that has to be conveyed to the student. Which are those various things that you want the student to pay attention to? So to that extent, wherever you write various, remove that word and what you call enumerate all the issues. Yeah, the sentence will become slightly long, but it is worth. Okay, so do not use these words at all in CO statement. Then use additional action verbs to represent activities, or we'll call elements of the selected POs, on the same chosen knowledge elements. So now you have two. You have one cognitive process, then you have a subset of POs, and then a subset of PSOs. Now, but while you are doing that, but the knowledge element should remain the same. That I have mentioned already, but I am repeating it because that is where people are likely to commit an error there. Put in effort to make CO statement as detailed as possible. Okay, that is by enumerating details, writing appropriate phrases to address selected POs and so on, but without losing comprehensibility. It should be. It should not be very complex and sentence where the students will find it difficult to understand what it is. So the comprehensibility by the student should not be lost, and in the end anyway it should be measurable. We will see some examples where you have some issues. Do not make a CO either too abstract or too specific. Too abstract again will leave the student in a vague state. He has to find out what specific things do I have to. A student should not be struggling hard to find out to find the specifics in that. Okay. Now, after writing a CO, doesn't matter from whatever method that you have chosen, it is good to cross-check your CO statement against this checklist. Does the CO have appropriate action verbs? Sometimes we have seen there are no action verbs at all in the CO statement, and also it can be inappropriate action verb. So first thing is you check whether the action verbs you have chosen are they appropriate. Is the COs stated in terms of student performance? Because COs have to be strictly written from the with learner centricity, you can say. It should be written from learner point of view, for learner concern, because it is not teacher centric. It should not represent what the teacher should be doing. It should represent what the learner should be learning. Okay, so it should be student centric. Is the CO stated as a learning product rather than learning process? This is another common mistake that you do. You follow this method. Okay, that is the process of learning, but it should mainly focus on the learning product. That is what you should be able to do at the end of after dealing with that particular CO. The process, if there is any specificity, that can be put as a condition in that. But process should not be the main focus. The product should be the main focus. And is the CO stated at the proper level of generality and relatively independent of other COs? Other COs may become prerequisites to this, but there should not be commonality. You should not have any issue saying that whether something that you are doing belongs to that CO or this CO. Okay? And is a CO attainable in the given context? Sometimes we can go overboard in trying to put a very high expectation, but it should be achievable, attainable with the kind of students you have, with the infrastructure that you have, with the time you have, other resources that you have, and so on. So whether it is achievable or not, if it is not achievable, no point in writing just on a piece of paper very high unattainable CO. Okay, these are the checklist. I think it is not difficult. It takes hardly a few minutes to quickly run through this and make modifications. But it is good to religiously follow to use the checklist to evaluate or your COs. Now I will present a few examples. Sample course. It is analog circuits and systems. I will read only one or two. For example, if you take CO3, device characterization and application, that is a title, determine the behavior of diodes, BJTs and MOSFETs in signal processing applications, understanding their limitations and selecting appropriate devices for specific applications. And here what are we trying to say? It is addressing PO1 and PO4 as well. That's why we put in the bracket. And if you are not, let us say, convinced, take this and try to modify this to ensure that PO1 and PO4 are further strengthened. Then T7 means theory or classroom lectures, one way or the other, 7 hours. And L4 is laboratory. There are 4 hours of laboratory related to this particular CO. Because it's a course with, though it's 4 credits, in the current context you are not separately showing the laboratory hours. It is implied. But here we are saying 7 lecture hours and our classroom sessions and 4 hours of laboratory session. Okay, that's how this course is. We will not discuss about the whether the way the analog circuits and systems need to be offered. That is a different issue. Okay, there are 7 course outcomes written, and as you can see, each course outcome is also addressing a slightly different subset of program outcomes. Now let us look at some acceptability of a CO. So we are presenting you some examples where in workshops faculty have written these COs. One CO is written as students will execute mini projects. Is it acceptable? When you look at this, students will execute mini projects. So it is a learning process. They are doing mini projects. That is a learning process. But what is it that they should be able to do themselves with regard to your subject? That is not part of this. So this is not an acceptable CO. Instructional activities are designed to facilitate attainment of CO by learners, but themselves are not COs. Okay. Have the concepts of compensators and controllers, P, PD, PI and PID. Have the concepts means, okay, where are these, have means where do you have them? In your brain. And how do you know that you have them? You have to demonstrate that you know you have an understanding of these concepts. But just saying is not a have is not an appropriate action verb at all to represent some activity in a CO. Okay, it's a mental change. COs are competencies or behaviors that can be demonstrated, not description of mental change in the students, though these are necessary. The mental changes are necessary, but that itself doesn't constitute the CO. They have to be demonstrated. Optimal generated scheduling for thermal power plants by using software package in the lab. Okay, you have described it is a topic in your syllabus, but that is not a CO. What are you supposed to do? Should you use that software to solve a problem? Or just only familiar or try to describe what are the features of that? So this is not, there is no action verb, no way of assessing, no way of determining attainment level, merely syllabus part of the is rewritten, that's all. We'll get knowledge of protection schemes for generated transformer induction motor. We'll get knowledge. Student will get knowledge. But how do you know that you got the knowledge? It has to be demonstrated. So it is not, there is, will get knowledge is not an action verb. Okay, the same explanation that we gave is also that COs are competencies and behaviors that can be demonstrated, not descriptions of internal changes. Some more. Apply problem solving techniques to find solutions to problems. This is not a CO of any course. All courses will have that. There is no specificity about with respect to that particular course. Too general, no clear way of assessing. Study variety of advanced abstract data types and data structures and their implementations. Study, but after studying, what should you be able to do? Study is a process, but not the action. Okay. Know the stress-strain relationship for a body subjected to loading within elastic limit. Again, no is not an acceptable action verb. Is internal change. Students will be able to learn the structure, properties and applications of modern metallic materials, smart materials, non-specific, non-metallic materials in advanced structural ceramics. So first of all, very, very large, huge scope. Even then, it is actually syllabus is major topic is taken and said appended students will be able to learn. That's it. So this is not an acceptable CO either. Students will be aware of baseband signal concepts and different equalizers. Same thing. Awareness, knowing, have concepts, these are all mental changes and they do not represent COs. Get complete knowledge regarding adaptive systems. This complete knowledge is a very vague thing. To what extent you should go, nobody knows. There are books written on adaptive systems. Does it mean that you have to read the whole book? No. So again, it is vague and it doesn't tell you what action needs to be demonstrated. So we have looked at different features of CO statements and how to write, what are the mechanisms that you have at your disposal to write good COs, and what aspects you should focus on. And then there are some do's and don'ts, and there is a checklist. If you follow all of them, you can write good course outcomes, because you are not doing this process for your course repeatedly. You will make incremental changes from year to year. But generally for a course, first you spend first time adequate effort, put adequate effort in writing good COs. It will help you in the long run. In the next unit, we will tag the course outcomes with the POs, PSOs, cognitive levels, knowledge categories addressed, and the number of class or laboratory sessions that you have. We'll see how to convert this into a kind of a tabular method that will facilitate your computation of attainment, as well as planning your instruction. And thank you for your attention.